Good morning. Today we're going to be talking about more fun and interactive stuff. We're going to be talking about HTML5 and CreateJS library that we're going to use to create a game. First, what is HTML5? HTML5 is a standard of HTML that allows the web page to display graphics and animations and other interactive stuff. The most important part about HTML5 that we're going to focus on is something called HTML5 canvas, which is where you're going to draw things. For example, you can find things like this that you can put on the canvas. And I always advise people to visit this website, w3schools.com, for tutorials about HTML and JavaScript, and it includes this nice tutorial about HTML5 canvas. So it shows you the browser compatibility and which browsers work with it, which mostly everyone does, and shows you how is it part of the HTML code. It is basically another tag, but it's called canvas, and you can give it an ID and you can specify the width and height. For example, let's see how does it appear here. This example shows you how it shows just the border of this canvas. Another example shows you actually how to use JavaScript to draw some stuff on it. Here you're going to draw a rectangle on the canvas. And you can draw other things too. You can draw a line, a circle, or text. But this is not actually what we're going to use. We're going to use the canvas, yes, but we're going to use another library to manipulate it. This library is called CreateJS. CreateJS is not one library, but a suite of libraries built with JavaScript. The first one is called Easel.js, which is the one that you use to create drawings on the canvas. The second one is called Tween.js, which helps you make the animations of all the things that you've drawn. The third one is called Sound.js, which integrates the sounds and audio elements that you can include in your HTML5, which is very important when you're building a game. The last one is Preload.js, which helps you put everything in the right order of loading, but for some reason it doesn't work with our app approach, so we're not using it. Let's first see how can we do stuff with Easel.js. In order to use CreateJS or Easel.js or other libraries, it's very simple. All you need to do is to have this line in your HTML page. So let's create a new page. This is a new page that we call it HTML5. And let's have our tags, HTML, and then HTML, closing, and then the body, and closing the body tag. Here we will use this line and copy it and put it here. Now this page can use CreateJS functionalities. So first thing we'll need to do is to have a canvas. Let's use one from here. A canvas with the ID of my canvas and with this specified width and height. Let's add it to our page and see and go to HTML5.html, and now it's showing the canvas. Good. Let's see how can we take it further. One very important suggestion is not to do any code or any interaction before you make sure the page is completely loaded. So for this, I would add this part. For the body tag, I will include something that is called onLoad and specify a certain function that will need to run when the page is loaded. So this function, I will call it init. I'm calling it from here. And then I will create another script and close the script tag and define this init function. Function init. So when the page is loaded, something happens. Let's see, for example, let's put console.log loaded. So when the page is loaded, it's showing me that it's loaded here. I'm putting it onto the console. What else can we have here? We can have global variables that we're gonna use. One of them is a variable for the canvas. So we'll call it canvas. And remember, from the HTML DOM lecture, we can always create an element that we can always manipulate. For example, let's try it from here. Canvas is equal to document dot get element by ID, and what was the name? My canvas. So now I have a variable called canvas. What can I do with it? Anything. Canvas dot style dot background color is equal to green. Now the canvas is green, and you can do other things with it. For example, you can say canvas dot style or canvas dot width is equal to 500. Now it's changing the width, and you can change the height to 400, or you can make it just the same as the size of the screen. So let's say the screen, how do we know the size of the screen? It is simply this, window dot inner width. It's 1366 pixels. So we can say that canvas dot width is equal to window dot inner width. How about that? That's good. We can do the same for height. This would be very helpful as we go along, as we're building applications that fit the size of any device. We don't want just to specify a certain dimensions that works for this particular screen. I want to make sure it works for my computer, it works for my iPhone, and works for my iPad, and for all the other devices that we're gonna use. So let's take these lines and put them into our code in the init function. So this is the canvas, and this is the canvas variable, and this is how we can change the color, and this is how we make the width and the height the way we want. Now, when we refresh the page, we'll find that everything is what is supposed to be. Notice that it does not change the dimensions when I change the size of the screen, which will be another point that we'll talk about when we're talking about responsive design. It just fits the screen at the point where the page is loaded. Now let's move on to drawing stuff on it. In order to use CreateJS to draw stuff, we will create another global variable that is called stage. This stage is going to be defined as the representation of the canvas at the CreateJS library. So let's go to create a stage here. Stage is basically this command. Stage, CreateJS stage, and use the canvas object. Then, in order to put any shape on it, let's create a shape, which is also another CreateJS object, and add it here. So shape is CreateJS shape. And then let's see, for this shape to specify what its graphics gonna look like, we have to specify that through the command where we begin filling this shape with certain color and specifying the thing that is going to be drawn, which is in this case going to be a rectangle, and specifying the dimensions. So let's add it here. And then for the shape to be added to the stage, we have to use something called stage to add child shape. And then, in order to make sure everything appears as it should be on the page or on the canvas, we need to update the stage. Stage.update. Let's go back to our page now and see how it looks like. Now you can actually find this element or this rectangle that is created here. You know that we can always make this a global variable. So let's get another variable, call it shape. And now this is a global variable. Let's see how can we play with it now. So let's try, for example, to manipulate some of its properties. For example, let's see how about the x coordinate of it. So let's make it 300. We did it like this, but nothing happened. Why? Because we need to update the stage. Now we change the x coordinate. Let's also change the y coordinate. And also update the stage. Now it changes. We can also change other things. For example, let's change the transparency of it. For example, shape alpha, which is the property indicates the transparency, let's make it 0.1 and update it. You see how it changed it. And you can also change it into higher values, for example 8. You see that it's now slightly different from the original. Let's make it 0.5 and update it. And you see other properties that can be manipulated are the size or the scale of it. So let's play with the scale x. There can be scale x. You're scaling it in the x direction and the x dimensions, and in the y. So let's, for example, make scale x is 10 and update it. Multiplied its x scale by 10, and let's make the y also like this and update it, and now everything is multiplied by 10. That's good. So this will help us as we're trying to pave the way towards how we can put stuff on the screen and how to give the properties of all the elements, and how eventually we can animate them to create our game. So for now, let's practice these points and onward to the next lecture. Thank you.